Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a hell of a week. And for us, we are recording on a Friday here at Nation80, and it is good to finally get back and record. Um, Unfortunately, there's some stuff going on in the world, and there's some personal stuff going on, but sometimes it's good to just decompress, get with family, and then just kind of think about something at least for a momentary amount of time before you go back and do the best you can with the challenges of the world and all the other stuff. But with all that being said, this is episode 8 of the Nation 80 podcast. I am here again, Rod, and I'm with my cousin Mike. Mike, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. We, as you said, have had a rough week, but we're here for another episode 8 coming at y'all. Um, Excited to talk about some topics today.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get some of the somber stuff out of the way. And I won't talk about the world events, but I will say the one world event I will talk about is the damn Steam Deck, right? And today was a lot of disappointment and defeat as we unfortunately did not receive the first batch of emails for the Steam Deck. And now, to be fair, this is first world problems. Don't get it twisted, right? I'll be okay. But you know how it is. Sometimes you're just excited for something to come out and you're ready to purchase something else. So, for those who don't know, when the Steam Deck was released, what was it, June 17th, 2021,
Mm-hmm.
or somewhere along that timeline, uh, the first ones who ordered were put into line for the Steam Deck. And then, of course, they kept reservations going. Like, I was kind of impressed. Michael told me that morning I didn't purchase. And then later on, I went and purchased like 3 hours later, and they still had reservations. And so, uh, unfortunately, due to chip shortages, the beginning of the release didn't take place in November, December timeframe as intended. So there was a delay. The delay was until first quarter 2022, and we didn't know what that meant. But if you've been listening to the podcast, you understand that me and Michael have been actively watching this and talking about it almost on a weekly basis. And so today, on February 25th, the first batch of emails have gone out, but it comes a little bit different. So, according to the official Steam Deck website, they are aware that, like, while I was at work, I was messaging Michael everything I was seeing on Twitter, and people had not been receiving the email and so forth. And so, finally, Steam finally released a statement on regards to that. And it reads, "Hi, happy launch day. We've seen some questions about what it means to be in the Q1 reservation group and when these folks will receive their emails. Here's how it breaks down. All people who are in the Q1 reservation window on Steam Deck store page, will receive an order email by the end of March. Q1 is quarter one, or January through March. The first batch of emails has already gone out this morning. The next batch of emails will go out on Monday, March 7th. It turns out the logistics work out better if we don't try to ship over a weekend. We'll continue sending emails to Q1 reservers in the order their reservations were made on a weekly basis through the end of March, March 14th, 21st, 28th. In April, we'll start going through the Q2 in a similar fashion. We're working through our production schedules, and we will have news as soon as folks get in. We will have news soon for folks in the after Q2 bucket. Now, Mike, I'm gonna let you go first. What do you think about that statement?
Oh man, yeah. So talk about the disappointment. You know, we have been texting each other back and forth for the last couple of days, and I think we're in the quarter two portion of it, but we were kind of hoping that maybe people would drop, and there's still a chance I think for that because they're going to reannounce it or introduce their next batch 3 days from now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, you sent me uh, pictures of from Twitter where people aren't getting, even though they're in that first quarter, they aren't getting their Steam Deck, and people that have gotten it reserved later than the people who got it reserved earlier are getting it. So I don't know. It seems like kind of a cluster. It makes me nervous for our circumstance. Quarter two is going to be in April, and I'm hoping. My hope is that they actually smooth things out by the time it gets to us. Uh, but I'm honestly, I'm not very hopeful. This does not seem. I'm already looking on eBay right now, and the people are already selling their confirmed purchases for $1,500.
Yeah, there's no way. There's absolutely no way I'm willing to pay that type of money. And,
Right.
and don't get me wrong, like even at the height of my gaming prime, there's no way that I'm paying that type of money for a Steam Deck.
Yeah,
I
it's
paid some money
crazy.
for some crazy things, but
It's
not for a
crazy.
Steam Deck. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
crazy. There's
Now,
a
I will say, sorry to cut you off, Mike, but I will say, I wish that they kind of said this earlier, right? I would have felt a whole lot better if they informed me that they weren't going to, that they were going to kind of do a weekly email out instead of assuming that everybody was going to get the email on day one,
right.
right? Because we got no information. We just like, hey, stand by, stand by, stand by. And I think they assume that they could just get away with doing it however way they want to, into the amount, I won't say outrage, but just the amount of concern started to appear on social media, like, hey, I didn't get an email, what's going on here, and stuff like that. And now I know some people are saying, hey, I know I got in before this guy. I don't know for sure because it's social media. I need more proof than someone just saying that.
Right.
Because this isn't like unfortunately, this isn't like San Diego Comic-Con where, like, for example, me and Michael both were in the room together and I ended up with tickets and he didn't. And that's a
Mhm.
whole nother story for another day.
Mhm.
But in this scenario, it just seems crazy that, again, they could have put this information out before time. This isn't like some run-of-the-mill company. They know what's going on. Steam has dealt with many launches before. Cyberpunk 2077, The Sims 4, any type of game that's had significant issues that's appeared on Steam, good and bad, they've had to deal with. So I don't understand why they thought the Steam Deck was going to be any different,
Right.
right?
You know what? And that's a good point because I my last email from Steam was in November, I believe. And
Mm-hmm.
that was to say that, hey, it's gonna be pushed out to February when we release it or launch it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Didn't get any emails. And it took me to Google, the updates. Like you had texted me, how did you find out about, what time emails are gonna get sent out? I had to Google it. Like no
Mm-hmm.
one sent me an email.
Mm-hmm.
You would have thought they would have said, hey guys, today is the day we're gonna start sending out emails at X amount of time. I think they said uh 10 Pacific time. Um, it would have been nice to get that. Uh, but they didn't, and I don't know, it just felt like they're very unprepared. And and I'm also kind of nervous too because I've seen some initial reviews, like The
Mm.
Wire, or was it Wire or Verge? I can't remember.
It was The
Um,
Verge saying that it's not ready. I was literally getting ready to look that up.
yeah, and like they're like the software is that definitely needs to be patched up.
Mm-hmm.
There's still compatibility issues with the games. They have a Steam does have a site that you could check your library on, and at least as far as my library concerns, there's only 7 guaranteed games out of the 150 games that I have on my library that are confirmed to be running well. And with that said, though, um, obviously Steam has a crap ton of games.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, just because it doesn't say that uh, that it's not compatible, or just because it has been verified compatible, doesn't mean it won't work. It's just that they haven't tested it yet. And so hearing what Verge said or Wired or whoever, it just seems like everything was kind of rushed at the end, um, which I guess is not too much of a surprise, uh, given our situation these last 2 years with gaming companies. But I was really hoping that we wouldn't run into this issue.
You know
Uh,
what? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go
yeah,
go ahead.
no, I like I said, I just ended. I was really hoping we wouldn't run into this situation, and
You
I
know what?
thought,
I feel like it's just the way that they framed it, right?
yeah,
Like, remember we looked at the interview, well, not the interview, but the review from Linus Tech Tips, and Linus said the same thing, but he said it in such a way where it's like, it's okay. Where the Verge was like, hey, and I don't know if you read the article, but it was like they loved it. It's the most fun thing they ever played, but the battery life, the bugs, all these other things are going to
hmm
be an issue, right?
hmm
So I think me as a consumer, kind of looking at Linus first, I was just kind of like, well, yeah, I kind of get it. 2 hours of battery life. I'll just buy a Ankler battery pack for a trip, and I'll be fine. But then I do kind of understand what the Verge is coming from. It's like 2 hours. Like, what game are you going to really like? I almost barely play NBA 2K for 2 hours
right,
on a Switch.
right. You
So
can't
what
get a whole game in
yeah,
on, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. So, you're going to stay wired most of the time than you are going to be wireless, right?
hmm
Because you're going to have a charging cable hanging out the end of your Steam Deck by any stretch of the imagination. So, as long as there's not a report from now until I get mine of it exploding, I'm going to be aware of what's coming, but I also think that because, like, mind you, because like the embargo's off on a lot of companies right now to review the Steam Deck, and The Verge is the only one I've seen that you can say is quote unquote controversial, and I haven't looked at all of them,
right,
but that at first I was like, okay, what type of bullshit are they on? Until I read it,
right,
and then I was like, okay, that makes total sense.
yeah,
And matter of fact, Mike, go on. I'm gonna bring up the article while you talk.
yeah. I really hope that by the time quarter 2 comes around, and I really hope we're on the early end of quarter 2, so really April, that we're able to get that email that says, "Hey, man, come in, go to the website and make your purchase." I do like that they give you 3 days. They give you 3 days to purchase it. Um, but it also kind of makes me nervous. Why do I need 3 days? Is it, so many people are in the websites? Are we worried about these scalpers that are just taking them and then selling them on eBay? Um, I mentioned before, people are paying, the Steam Deck's already been listed for 15, 16, $1,400.
Mm-hmm.
That's just for the confirmed purchase. I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeing listings on here just for the reservation, $400. Okay, there's a Steam Deck 256 gigabyte. That's the middle one. Just the reservation on eBay is listed for $405 for bids. 34 people have bidded on this.
That's insane.
So you're gonna pay $400 just to get a reservation, and then that's a $520 system. All right. So now you're paying nearly $1,000 just to get this. And I'm looking through this, and it doesn't even really say which reservation it is. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
for all I know, this could be quarter 4,
Yeah.
you
Or
know?
after quarter 2.
Right. Like,
So
what the hell is going on? Like, people are just, like you said, man. I Even in my heyday when I was single, I didn't have no responsibilities. I'm making that BAH, in the military. Uh, I'm not spending $1,000 on a gaming system,
mm-hmm.
on a handheld gaming system. Okay, $1,000 is, that's at least a bare bones minimum gaming laptop. You know,
Mm-hmm.
But if you're asking me to do that for, it's weird how people are. I'll see. This says quarter three. You're paying $400 for quarter three. Nah,
You
nah.
might as well reserve it yourself. I don't really
Yeah,
understand that part.
yeah.
Like,
I
you might
don't.
as well just go ahead and reserve it yourself instead of it's not coming any faster. Now
Right.
look, I will, with a grain of salt, I would say if you were talking about quarter one first batch and you're trying to get a bid in to get a reasonable price, I kind of get it.
Right.
Right?
Like you're gonna get it next week.
Yeah, absolutely. But you're talking about, you're basically waiting with everybody else. You could probably reserve one right now and still be in the same quarter as what you just paid for, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I will play devil's advocate. There's a lot of people who troll on eBay, so then after everything push comes to shove, they don't even actually pay for it.
Right.
They run the price up, and then no one actually pays for the
Right.
auction. But
Right.
just going off of initial things, that does look kind of crazy. So, all right. So, Mike, I do have this Verge article up. It was written by Sean Hollister, and it's titled Steam Deck Review. It's not ready. And one of the first things he mentioned, both of these things are true. First, I'm having more fun with the Steam Deck than any other gadget I've tested in years. Second, the Steam Deck is a mess. It's rushed, unfinished, buggy, and unstable. If Valve sold the console I've been playing at Best Buy or GameStop, people will return it in droves. Of course, Valve isn't stocking this $400 handheld gaming PC at Best Buy. The maker of Half-Life and Portal is trickling it out directly to devout fans of Steam, the platform that pioneered the idea of selling early access games before they're actually complete, which is a very good point. Going further down here into the article, the Steam Deck has a unique formula too. It's a Linux computer that plays Windows games like Nintendo Switch and unheard bang for your buck. And games just like PUBG, a game I played for 452 hours despite glitches I can't get enough of. Okay, so here's the good things he mentions. Powerful, high quality hardware at an unheard price, which is true because he compared it to another device which was going for $1,000, and getting this for $400 is pretty impressive. Infinitely customizable controls make decades of gaming playable. Easy lets you balance performance and battery drain. Suspends and resume games. Doubles as a full Linux PC. Bad stuff. Unfinished buggy software. Noisy fan that never stops whining. Some of the most popular games still don't work. 2 hours or less of battery life at highest fidelity, which is kind of nuts. But this is kind of what I paid for. I'm kind of aware that I wasn't going to, what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the early Game Boy and the Turbo Express, right? Or the Sega Game Gear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember,
Yeah.
you would put 16 batteries in the back, and you would literally only get maybe about an hour and a half of gameplay, right? But you swore up and down like, hey, it's still the hottest thing in town. Like, I can't tell you if I got my hands on a Turbo Express. And remember, it used to come with the analog TV antenna on it. So you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh yeah, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And like now, like no. Imagine walking around with an antenna hanging out of your portable device
Right.
just to get a
Yeah.
channel.
Yeah.
But some other things that he does mention here is like when the Steam Deck works, I finally feel like I take PC gaming with me. I fired up God of War or XCOM 2 or Streets of Rage 4, let my fingers melt into fantastic controls, feel the rousing music come out of the speakers, and he says such a delight. But the operative word is when, because the Steam Deck software is coming in hotter than any gadget I ever tested. Every single day I used the Steam Deck, I was dodging error messages, bugs, crashes, black screens, UI glitches, regression, even entire feature changes from Valve at the eve of the release. I lost track of how many times I had to reboot the system or reconnect the device because Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or an SD card stopped working as expected. A few times I downloaded a few games I downloaded, never finished installing, randomly stopping in the middle of a retroactively running out of space. Some games told me their contact was locked when I tried to move them, or that when I grabbed the corrupt or they grab corrupt update files. Sometimes parts of my library or all the games on my SD card will temporarily go missing. I destroyed one card after the deck seemingly froze while formatting it, and I stupidly reset the console. Never do that while writing to Flash. There are times I couldn't reach Steam servers to download save games or verify ownership of a title. And let me tell you, it really sucks to find out you can't play a single player like Control or Red Dead Redemption 2 on the go because of DRM. My phone hotspot worked in a pinch. So I won't go any further to that, but that's a lot to take in. And yeah, so like you said, Mike, maybe we dodged the bullet by not being quarter one, right? And
Right.
they can work on these updates.
Yeah,
So
and I think they will. I
yeah.
think that Steam is one of those companies that listens to their customers and listens to the feedback and works tirelessly to fix that. One thing that you just mentioned that I never really thought of is the DRM.
Mm,
Um, I hate DRM. I hate that you have to have a mobile connection to verify your purchase. And it's a terrible thing. And for some people, that's not an issue. Yes, I can get on my phone, I can create a hotspot and use it as a network to make sure that my game is verified and I can play it. But that's a tedious process. And then what
hmm.
about for the people that don't have that capability? That's just that sucks. That sucks. For me, my most use case for the Steam Deck is to take it to work. Okay. And to play it while I'm at lunch. I get an hour of lunch, and I get 30 minutes worth of break time. uh After that, I am using that. I want to be able to use that time to play games, because by the time I get home, you know, I don't have that kind of time to play games. And if I do, I either got to get up early in the morning, or I got to stay up late at night and game in the bed or something like that. And um, that's not really likely to happen for me in my scenario. So work is like the big use case scenario for me, where I don't have an open Wi-Fi connection.
Hmm.
Everything is secured. Okay, so if I want to get online, I got to create my own hotspot. All right, and I can do that for me. I don't know if a lot of other people can do that. I'm not sure if other people can do that, or want to do that. So uh, DRM is a I know has been a very controversial thing, and it sucks when you look at the Switch. You got that with the classic Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64 games that you pay subscription for. It's great to have it, but if you're out and about and you don't have Wi-Fi, and all of a sudden you got the craving to play Mario 64, well, if your Switch can't, even though you have the game downloaded on your Switch, if you don't have an internet connection, you're screwed, because the Switches wants to see that you actually made that purchase.
Yeah.
What kind of sense does that make? Yes, I made the purchase. What? I don't know. Whatever. That's a whole nother story.
You know what?
Um,
It's so crazy that, like, for example, like the whole purpose of this was to get away from physical copies,
right.
but more and more it seems like I'm getting ready to go right back to physical copies, especially on the Switch. Between, like we talked about last week, the price point of games on their store and the fact of all that DRM madness, why the hell would I want to deal with all that when I can just go ahead and buy the game from GameStop?
For real. Yeah. I mean, I don't get it. Like, I think Steam had enabled us to think and be like, we don't need physical anything. We just go on Steam, we buy a digital game at a reasonable price. Okay. Uh, but when you look at, of course, like Nintendo and PlayStation, uh, their prices are ridiculous.
Hmm.
And then not to get off subject, but Nintendo, so they're getting ready to get rid of their 3DS and Nintendo Wii U eShop. Um, and you've got at the bare minimum, I think 3 months to purchase what you can purchase, and then that's it. That's a wrap. They said a year, but that's with certain things. Really, it's 3 months to purchase whatever you want to purchase digitally. Uh, and good luck trying to buy physical copies now, because now people are like, "Oh, you want a physical copy? Yeah, give me $200 for that."
Mm-hmm.
Like, damn, all right, cool. So I don't know. This whole it's interesting. Like, I heard in one of Linus's videos when he's talking about the Steam Deck, he's like, man, what a great time to be alive. And he's absolutely right. To have the Steam Deck, to have the potential to play your PC games in your hand, no matter where you are, is an unbelievable feat. Okay, despite the bugs, despite the crashes, Steam will eventually fix that. Okay, um, but for the price point, because there are Steam's not the first company to do this. There are other companies that have made handheld PCs. You just got to pay $1,400-$1,500 for it, and still have bugs. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
But to have what Steam is putting out is great. And they will fix the bugs, and they'll fix the crashes and the issues like that. And so it's great to have all of that, but I really think I always was a digital guy. Now I'm starting to feel like, man, maybe I should buy some physical copies before they start getting too expensive. So I don't know. The gaming industry right now is man, it's interesting right now. It's
Mm-hmm.
super. This is like a hell of a time to be nostalgic about stuff and crazy about stuff. And I just want a next gen system, you know whether it's a PlayStation 5 or a Steam Deck. I just want something. I feel like I'm the outs. You know what? I don't know how about you, Rodney, but like everybody at work for me has a PlayStation 5. How the
Mm.
fuck do they have PlayStation 5 and I'm the only one that does it? you know, Everybody has an Xbox Series X. I
Mm-hmm.
just want an Xbox Series X. I just want a Steam Deck. I'm the
Yep.
only asshole that doesn't have any of this.
Yep.
Is it karma? I don't know.
You know what?
God.
It's the thing is because sometimes like we've always joked about adulting is hard, right? Like I keep on trying to live with no inhibitions and just purchase whatever I want. But there's always this piece of my brain that's like, come on now, you know what's coming up. You got school tuition to pay for, car repairs to take care of. You know this isn't a good idea, and then so you kind of go ahead and stall yourself from doing it, and then everybody else is just like, you know what, fuck my car, I'm gonna go ahead and purchase a
So you're
PlayStation 5.
saying we're too responsible?
Yes,
God
yes,
damn it!
absolutely.
So you're saying we're putting our loved ones and our family ahead of our own needs?
Yes,
Oh my God, what
yes,
happened?
I know. I
Oh
should have bought
Lord.
a coupe a long time ago, but you know what, I decided to be Mr. Family Man, and now I'm driving a Nissan Versa. Times have changed. Times have changed. So, Mike, why don't you lead us with the next headline? I believe you had something to bring to the table. If I caught you off guard, I can bring up something first.
Yeah, no, I think we were going to talk about we meant to talk about the last episode. We didn't get to it because we were talking about Peacemaker, uh, the Book of Boba Fett,
Mm,
and that show. So the season has completely wrapped up, and we got a lot of stuff coming out of that show. Man, I've had this discussion with people at work. I've had this discussion with Elias on this season of the Book of Boba Fett. What was better, that or the Mandalorian? Um, I watched the season and I loved it. I thought that it was one of those shows that it starts off slow. It's kind of like WandaVision, where it starts off slow, but eventually it just gets really, really good at towards the end. and it leaves you with a lot of questions and wanting more. So, Book of Boba Fett starts off with, Boba Fett and what happened to him after the Return of the Jedi. You know, in Return of the Jedi, we saw him going into the Sarlacc pit, and it seemingly that was it. That was a wrap on Boba Fett. Uh, but then we see that he escaped. He gets taken in by the Tusken Raiders, and or the Tusken Raiders, Sand People, whatever. Uh, and develops a relationship with them, kind of like Kevin Costner's Dances with the Wolves. Uh, and you know, you see his rise to power and how he's dealing with the underworld in Tatooine. And then when you think like, okay, well, where else can you go from here? All of a sudden, you get the Mandalorian coming back. Okay, you get Din Djarin coming back. Okay, you got Grogu coming back, and then you see Luke Skywalker. And you're like, damn, man, this is looking dope as hell. Um, and so you got to see all these other aspects to this universe before the last trilogy of Star Wars movies. And man, whether you love or hate the last trilogy of Star Wars movies, I think the most interesting part is what happens in the TV shows. The Mandalorian was great, and I think the Book of Boba Fett was awesome, and how they ended this season was really cool because you got to see Grogu come back, and he had a decision to make. Luke gave him a decision. You either go the path of the Jedi or you go to your homeboy Jaren. Um, you had Jaren with the dark saber, and whether or not he was actually going to keep it or he was going to lose it in battle to somebody else. And then you had Boba and uh, whether he was going to keep his empire and get respect or lose it to all these other shady organizations. And there's so much going on, and there's so many questions at the end and where they're going to go with it. Um, and seemingly, with the next Mandalorian, it's going to go into the next Mandalorian season. And, we're going to see the Mandalorian and we're going to see baby Yoda or Grogu. And man, it was just a really good show. I don't know about you, Rodney, but I really loved it. Um, I don't know if it was better than The Mandalorian, but it was pretty damn good. And I think that um, John Favreau is a damn genius.
Yeah,
I love John Favreau.
I'm in agreement. I really enjoyed John Favreau as well. When it came to the Book of Boba, when we got to episode 3 or episode 4, and we start seeing the Mandalorian for the next 2 episodes, the only thing going in my head is this might as well just been a part of Mandalorian season 2. I felt slightly like an injustice was kind of done to the Boba Fett story by basically giving us 2 more episodes of The Mandalorian. And then at the last episode, of course, it being combined, which I mean, I do understand, but it also, I don't know. I'm a Star Wars fan, but I would tell you that ever since Star Wars has come to Disney, my fandom is kind of altered a bit just because I don't know if you remember, Mike, remember the books, the Star Wars books with Han Solo and Princess Leia's children. They were twins.
Hmm.
I used to read those when I was a kid, and I'm a little hot and cold on the history of Dark Horse's Star Wars. And so uh, when it comes to, I'm not 100% familiar with everything going on in the Star Wars universe via name or everything, but I think for a casual like me, it just made things kind of a bit harder. Uh, why the Mandalorian had so much screen time in a Book of Boba TV show. Now, that doesn't mean it wasn't good or anything like that, because I did enjoy watching like for example, I'll give you a prime example. When the Mandalorian went back to the Mandalorians, I believe, after he what is she called? The Great Builder?
Hmm.
Uh, and stuff like that. I felt like that should have been the Mandalorian show. Then it should have been in the book of Boba, right? But overall, even though with those cons, I did enjoy the season. I kind of also base certain shows off of my family as well, and the rest of my family wasn't even interested in Book of Boba compared to the Mandalorian.
Mm.
And I think it's just because there's no Baby Yoda, realistically. And by the time Baby Yoda showed up, my family is already tuned out because if I'm a casual, they are just watchers.
Right.
They if it's interesting, they're gonna watch it. But if it's not, then they'll move on to the next thing. And my wife is hot and cold when it comes to sci-fi on certain levels. It just depends. Aliens, she loves. Star Wars, it's a different thing for her.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I think if you're a person that is into Star Wars and is into the whole storylines and everything like that, you like to see Book of Boba Fett because it fills in the gaps. It fills in the questions of what
Hmm.
happened to Boba after the Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that the Book of Boba Fett should have been billed as a Mandalorian series,
Hmm.
uh, because eventually, the tone definitely changed when they brought in the Mandalorian.
Hmm.
Okay, when they brought in Din Djarin, and you're like, oh man, Din Djarin's in here. Oh my god, it totally changed. Um, and the focus totally changed because you had Grogu and you had Luke Skywalker in that training, and I thought that was so significant. Uh, and it had nothing to do because that whole episode had nothing to do with Boba Fett. It had everything to do with Grogu, and uh, that was a Mandalorian episode. That was a straight up Mandalorian episode, and it's very interesting. So I don't know. The guy I can Dave Filoni. He's the guy that is responsible for Clone Wars and Rebels and the subsequent show after that. He was heavily involved with this. Him and John Favreau are heavily involved with this series, and you still have those characters, and you still have Thrawn out there. You still have Rosario Dawson's character in there, and uh, it should have just been billed as a Mandalorian season, um, just with some backstory to Boba Fett. So,
Right.
uh, for me, like for Elias, like Elias already knew. I've raised Elias to watch all the movies. He's seen
Hmm.
all the movies. He's very knowledgeable about what's been going on. And you had brought up the point about Dark Horse, which is interesting because Marvel is giving Star Wars back to Dark Horse,
Hmm.
and so you mentioned Leia and Han's twins. It's very confusing because in the Star Wars universe, the Disney Star Wars universe, they don't have the twins. They
Yep.
just they just have the one guy.
Yep.
They just have Ben.
Hmm.
Uh, but which I thought was a mistake. They
I
should
agree
have had
too.
they should have had the twins, Jason and Jaina Solo.
Yep. Yep.
I've been a huge fan of the Star Wars novels, and I don't know this is why they're going back because there's so much pushback to Dark Horse, uh, taking the
But does
stories
that
back.
go back to being canon, or they're just going to be responsible for the books now? I
I think
haven't.
they're just going to be responsible for the books right now. I don't think
Right.
they're going to go back to just the canon part because that would just
That would
mess
destroy
up the
everything.
whole. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a whole mess. It's a
Yeah.
whole
Absolutely.
mess,
Yep.
But I mean, I think between Favreau and Filoni, they'll square it away. They'll square it away. And to be honest with you, I when the last trilogy of movies came out, I after every movie came out, I was the first to text you. Oh my God, Rodney, did you see this? Like
Mhm.
it was amazing. And now that I think about it, I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
maybe not.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, however, this shows what Favreau and Filoni have done is great.
Mhm,
I think it's great. I mean, even with you look at the Marvel, the MCU shows,
mhm,
okay, what Feige has done with WandaVision and Sam Wilson and the Winter Soldier and Loki and Marvel What If, I think it's all been great. I think the shows are even better than the movies.
mhm,
Uh, and so, yeah, I would rather just watch the shows. I loved Star Wars Clone Wars. To me,
mhm.
it's one of the greatest Star Wars stories out there. Um, I just thought Clone Wars was great. I thought Rebels was great. Uh, you know, I I think the shows are supremely better than
And
the
I've
actual
heard
movies.
Bad Batch has been amazing as well. I
Yeah, the
never
Bad Batch has been awesome.
Yeah.
Bad Batch has been awesome. So yeah, I mean,
You know what
I
though? I'm ready. I'm at this point now that I'm so ready for them to stop with the Easter eggs and give me something in the universe from the ground up, right? Like I want to see, like for example, as much as I love the Mandalorian, I think Baby Yoda, the Mandalorian looked like Boba Fett, and having Luke Skywalker in it is really what sold the show more than the Mandalorian, right? I kind of feel that way about Ashka coming out because I'm sure someone's thinking when Sam Jackson going to appear,
right.
right? And then Boba Fett, you had the I'm not familiar with his name, but the bounty hunter appear, and
Hmm.
and then that grabbed everyone's attention. But I'm now that we know that the show can be successful, um, I would really love to just see something. And this is asking a lot because Marvel does it all the time too with Easter eggs. But I would love to see something now from Star Wars where we get another slice of the universe. And don't be wrong, still have the Empire, the Republic, but I want something just fresh off the top without us going back to other characters and just see how that turns out. But I might be asking for a lot.
No, I think that you're going to see that. I
Mm,
think that they're gonna have an Obi-Wan show. I don't
mhm.
know about it. I don't know how well that's gonna do.
I forgot
I
about that. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not too excited about it. However, keep a lookout for Grand Admiral Thrawn. Okay,
Mm.
he is a, the most interesting character, and to me, he's the most interesting character in the Star Wars universe
Mhm.
because yes, he is the Empire, but he is this guy who he's like Patton, all right, George's Patton from World War II. He's a great military genius, all
Mhm.
right. Um, he doesn't have any political views. He's terrible with politics. Uh, all he wants to do is have order to the universe, and he's very cold. He's very calculating. He's like Sherlock Holmes as a bad guy. Okay, he looks at people's art and is able to decipher how they uh how they react to the world, how they react to tactics. And in the Star Wars lore, he's possibly the greatest menace besides Emperor Palpatine, because he's just that smart. And I think that when they introduce him, because it's not just him, it's what he brings along. His whole motivation is to save everybody from this unknown enemy, at least in the original lore. Okay. Uh, because he's from like the very outer rim.
Mhm.
And uh, there are things out in the outer rim that are so dangerous, you know, and if you've read the novels, you look at the Yuuzhan Vong, who can repel the Force, and they're so dangerous. They're so dangerous to the Jedi in the novels. Um, you know, they decimate, they kill Chewbacca in the damn novels. Um, and so they drop a moon on him.
Mm.
Jason turns into a bad guy. He kills, you know, so Han and Leia have 3 kids. There's Jason, there's Jaina, um, and then they have I think his name is Ben. Um, and so or maybe it's Anakin. I can't remember. It's one of the two. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
they actually have 3 kids. 2 of them are twins, Jason and Jaina, and they have a younger one. And I think at the end of it all, only one of them survives. So, you know, only one of the kids survives. I believe it's Jaina. And so all this is precipitated by Admiral Thrawn, and he is just this great threat. And I think that you're going to get something new. I think that you're going to get something that's most people have not seen before. And you saw that in the Mandalorian season with Ahsoka Tano, Rosario Dawson's character, in the one episode where the Mandalorian and Ahsoka are fighting this outpost. It had I can't think of his name as Michael Bean, the guy from Terminator and Aliens.
Ooh, I can't recall.
Yeah, and so I think his name is Michael Bean. Um,
I'll
but
look him up.
he was in Terminator and Aliens, and so they're in this outpost, and Ahsoka is fighting the leader of the outpost, and she's like, "Where is your your master, Grand Admiral Thrawn?" And if you're a fan of Star Wars Rebels, you know who that is, and it's exciting because you really hope it, for me at least, this is the one time that I'm like, please do this right, please do this justice. It's an adaptation that needs to be done right, and if you don't do it right, I'm gonna be pissed. And
It
so
is
I
Michael Bean. He was in the Mandalorian. He played Lang.
okay, yeah, and
Mhm.
so I
And then
think
Michael, I'm sorry to cut you off, but just real quick, it was Anakin Solo, and then there's Jason and
okay,
Jaina, and they all died.
yeah, so like I think if you do it right, and you bring Grand Admiral Thrawn, well, I should say if they are, uh, if you bring when you bring in Grand Admiral Thrawn into this universe, it's got to be grand. It's got to be epic. And I think that for the casual, like you said, like yourself, you're gonna be like, "Whoa, what the fuck? Who is this guy? Who is this guy? He is amazing. He's a bad guy for sure, but he's a bad guy that you love to kind of root for, um, because he's an awesome bad guy. He's not just some crazy, you know, like Emperor Palpatine, like I gotta rule everybody and blah 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 blah. You know, it's no, I'm trying to make the world a better place, even though I've got to cross some lines, uh, but I'm gonna do it in a way that people kind of respect me about it, and people kind of like, ooh, man, this Grand Admiral Thrawn, I ain't trying to fight him. You can have my planet, all right? Forget about it. So I'm hoping that they do it right. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm looking. Regardless, I'm looking for. I'm always a fan. I'll definitely be watching. So it's one of those things where right now Disney Plus has my money, and I was one back in the day that was completely leery that once the initial Marvel shows came out, I would be canceling my subscription until it's time again to for a Marvel show or a Star Wars show to come out. But they've kept me interested. I think there's been some hits and misses. So, for example, I would say some hits would be for me personally is the Mandalorian and Falcon and Winter Soldier. And when I say that, they're not misses, but they didn't gravitate to me as much would be WandaVision, Loki. Even though Loki's been good, I don't know why. I just haven't I haven't finished it as much as I would. And I know, Michael, you've been telling me to finish it
Oh,
for
I
the longest
loved
time.
Loki.
Yeah.
Oh.
And matter of fact, I have this thing where I have certain shows that the family doesn't watch that I watch at night to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of gone against my rule of watching shows at work. So I'm going to start watching some things at work. Like, when I'm on break, I like
Mm-hmm.
to just use my unlimited data to start watching certain shows that hit that. Because, like, for example, The Boys, haven't seen season 2, and I know season 3 is right around the corner. And I know there's many other shows that we talked about, Expanse being one of them. I haven't finished season 5 or season 6. So
Yeah, you know what? Just saying that, being, just thinking about Linus Tech Tips, you know, him saying, "What a time to be alive." It really is, because we have so many options to watch all kinds of things. Okay. Um, I'm in the same boat. I have not watched season 2 of The Boys. I want to. I want to get Jen into it. I don't. I feel like I've overloaded her on superhero TV shows and
mhm,
movies.
mhm,
Um, so I watched Peacemaker without her because I
mhm.
just didn't think that she would like it.
Yep.
Um, but I want her to watch. I really do want her to watch The Boys. I don't think that she's gonna like it. I don't know. So there's The
It just,
Boys.
you know what? What I've realized when it comes to particular tones, especially with my wife, if it's one of those that isn't, I won't say it has to be uplifting, but if it's going to start off depressing, my wife isn't about it
Right.
because
If it's not mainstream, we've gotten, I've gotten Jen used to Marvel.
yeah.
Okay. I kind of gotten her used to DC. Right. We've
Hmm.
watched some of the DC stuff. It's not too bad. Okay. It's definitely a different tone from the MCU. But trying to get her into The Boys, that's a completely different. I
Yeah.
mean,
And it takes a particular type of individual to
yeah.
watch The Boys to begin with.
Yeah,
And the
it's
crew,
not superheroes. It's
yeah.
look, superheroes. Look, this is superheroes in the real life. Like, if
Yeah.
superheroes existed in real life, they'd be assholes. You
Yep.
know.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I yes, I. There's so much stuff out there. So even The Expanse, she was interested in The Expanse, but because we watched so many different other shows, The Expanse is a grind. It's a definite grind. You have to watch The Expanse straight through. You can't miss a beat. Okay. If you miss a couple of days, if you miss a week, then you got to start over again. Because you got to keep it fresh in your mind to understand what's going on in the entire show. Uh, I've started The Expanse 5 or 6 times because I'm like, okay, new season's out. Damn, I don't remember what happened to last season. Shit, let me go watch it again. Oh, nope, gotta start from the beginning. Gotta see what's going on. Um, so there are just so many shows out right now
It's
that
crazy because I remember back in the day, and Mike, I think, out of respect, I think we need to eventually tackle this one day. We need to try to watch Mantis again one day. Only, and the reason I say that, not because like it was the greatest thing since sliced bread, but for its time, it was pretty cool just to have something out there because sci-fi shows were far in between, right? You had Babylon 5, you had Deep Space Nine, for your sci-fi side of the house. You even had we can even say Star Trek Voyager. We can also say Next Generation was out there. I don't know if you remember that X-Men ripoff that came after Saturday morning cartoons. I think it was called like Mutants or something like that. It was supposed to be loosely based off of the X-Men back in the day. And I'm trying to think of anything else, but the buck kind of stopped right there when it came to sci-fi in the early to mid 90s.
Right.
And then you had a couple supernatural shows. Of course, X-Files did well. There was the spinoff to X-Files, which name I forget at the moment. Um, and then you had other things like the recreation of the Twilight Zone and stuff like that. But there was nothing. Sci-fi was not the move back then. It was more horror. It was more your Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer movies. And then, so like I'm well aware that eventually something is like a Marvel movie or something is going to fail, and then it's going to lose the steam out of its sales. But like you said, this the amount of content that I've gotten, I'm grateful because and with that being said, not just the amount of content, but good content, right? Like
Right.
I haven't seen Agents of Shield in a while, but it was still good. Like it was really good. It was really well done for an ABC show, right? We got Daredevil, we got Star Wars fandom, we got a lot of DC stuff. And then we, just because time hasn't presented itself, we haven't been able to talk about Titans, Harley Quinn, freaking Doom Patrol. There's so much out there, and that's just that. There's some really good sci-fi on Amazon that no one talks about because it's Amazon, and they
Right.
freaking don't.
Right.
They don't freaking put no press releases out for the show. But there's Humans, that was a UK show. You have Expanse, we talked about before. The Boys, Reacher, Invincible.
Mhm.
And if of course it's word of mouth for some of these, and some of these are not. But there's just some phenomenal sci-fi superhero stuff that back in the day you get beat up for, and now everyone's like, hey, I'm a fan, and I'm not a gatekeeper. Come on back to the fold because I've always been here, and it's been good to come back to it.
Right. You mentioned Mantis. Mantis, and especially now that we're Black History Month, Mantis back in the day, I mean, that was like mid 90s. And a show that was developed by Sam Raimi, and uh man, I that show was so groundbreaking. If that show came out now, it would be freaking amazing. Uh it just came out way before its time, kind of like Blade. Blade was
Hmm.
way before its time, where at a time where people didn't really care too much about it. It only lasted, I think, one season. But
Said 22 episodes, yeah. So
yeah,
I think
22
that's one
episodes.
season.
Yeah, so it was a great show. I mean, Carl Lumbly, he if people remember the show Alias, he was in Alias, and just a great actor, and he was badass, man. I loved that show. He was almost the show was almost kind of like a PG version of Shadowhawk,
Yeah.
because he was a paralyzed cat in that show.
Yep.
And so he wasn't a lawyer, but he was a doctor. And when you think about Mantis, you think about Blade. Yes, they came out way before its time, but they set the stepping stones for all these movies afterwards. Okay, yes, we had a lot of crap back in the day. And I still think of David Hasselhoff's uh, uh, Nick Fury,
Ooh.
and then
And
there was
that Fantastic Four movie that never came out too is another good example.
right, and then there was was it Dolph Lundgren as the Punisher?
Yep, there
I can't.
was.
Yeah, Dolph Lundgren's Punisher. Like
Mike, do you
nobody.
remember the Adventures of Superboy that used to come on Fox?
Yeah, like nobody cared. Nobody cared about that. But Mantis. You talk about Blade. You talk about Smallville. Okay,
Smallville's a good one. I
Smallville,
will
another
even
groundbreaking
say,
show.
on a smaller scale, the Adventures of Lois and Clark was pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great point.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Smallville, The Adventures of Lois and Clark, with Dean Cain, used to be a running back for the Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
Uh, you know, just great shows that, man, had they come out now, I mean, the shows are out now. There is
Hmm.
a Superman and Lois Lane show out now.
And I've heard
Uh,
it's really good. I just
I
never seen it.
I want to check it out. I haven't seen it either. But that's the thing, because we have all these options,
Hmm.
right? We have all these options now where we didn't have them back then, and it's like, okay, well, this is as good as we can get. Okay, cool. Um, and it's great to see, because we just finished watching Reacher, and you had the main protagonist, Reacher, was Aquaman from Smallville,
Mm.
and you had one of the characters, Lana Lane from Smallville, was also in Reacher, so that was
Yep.
cool to
Yes,
see.
she was. I hadn't
Uh,
seen her in ages.
yeah, for real. And so uh, it's great to see what we have now. Absolutely, it's great to see what we have now. I you know when we were doing just as a podcast form, we were talking about, are we getting exhausted with all the movies and this and that. um my stance has always been, yeah, sure, but man, we have so many options to watch so many different things, and
And well, and
sometimes
the
they're
good thing
good.
is it stays there compared to when we were coming up. Like if you didn't have it on a VCR,
Yeah,
like it's always going to be on some sort of streaming format as
absolutely.
long as the character isn't problematic. Then
Yeah.
it'll always be around. That if you don't catch it right away, you can eventually run back and catch it.
Right, and we're now getting, Charlie Fox is back in the MCU. That's
Hmm.
great. He's being Daredevil. Vincent D'Onofrio is back in the MCU. That's great. Kingpin is back. Man, I am hoping to God that Michael Coulter comes back as Luke Cage. That's not a far stretch to see. He's got other shit going on, but that's not a far stretch to see. John Berthal, that's not a hard stretch to see him coming back as Punisher. I would love both those characters to come back. I would love Jessica Jones to come back. Um, Iron Fist, that's fine. You can recast him. That's cool. Um, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with
yeah.
that at all.
Well, Mike,
Uh,
since we are talking about content, there is one thing I want to give a shout out to, because even though I personally didn't watch this show back in the day, it's just good when you get things like this back on television. So I want to give a shout out to the Proud Family Louder and Prouder TV show coming back around. I don't know
is that
if
on
you
Disney
watch.
Plus?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It just started today, uh, with this being February 25th. But um, it was a show that I did watch, partially back in the day, and always loved it. But I didn't have Disney Channel growing up, and then once I got older, of course, it's one of those things where you just kind of like don't give it the attention it requires because it's not for you at that time. But I'm so happy to see it come back because this was for those who don't know, this was a pretty monumental African American show on Disney of all places, because Disney had all these other shows with some of your favorite Mouseketeers, but it just didn't hit for a lot of African American families. And then the Proud Family came around and totally turned it upside down. I remember Tommy Davidson playing the father, who did a phenomenal job. Kyla Pratt did her thing as the daughter. I can't recall her name at the moment, but just super excited to see the show come back. And I'm going to try to introduce my daughters to it. Who knows if they go with it. But it's just one of those things. It's just always kind of cool to share them a little piece of something I used to watch in my earlier years or childhood and see if they're interested. Some things don't gravitate like others, but what can you do?
Yeah, no, it looks like a good show. I never watched it back in the day, but I've seen the promos for it on Disney Plus, and I was like, "Oh, this looks pretty funny." So, yeah, I would like to check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mike, is there anything further that you want to talk about before we end the show for the night?
All right, so I have been very disappointed today. I already told you that I was depressed that I did not get a Steam Deck. I did not get an email, even though I knew that I was slated for quarter two. I didn't get a Steam Deck, and so I was like, "Well, you know what? I need to buy stuff to to fill that void." in my gut. I almost bought an Xbox Series S. Okay. Um, it's the all digital version of the Xbox Series X. Uh, and it doesn't, I want to say it doesn't do 4K. But it will do games up to 120 frames per second. So I almost bought it just because it's supposed to be a great emulation machine. Um, I still see that in my future. I really do. I did not buy it.
Mm, didn't pull the trigger, huh?
I pulled trigger because I am a responsible adult. However,
I totally understand.
however, I did buy some games for my PlayStation Vita. Okay,
Ooh.
so uh, for those of y'all don't know, PlayStation Vita was PlayStation's last handheld device, and it's so underrated. I wish PlayStation never gave it up. I wish they could have gone toe to toe with Nintendo and done much better than Nintendo, uh, because Nintendo doesn't care about hardware.
Hmm.
Nintendo cares about software, and that's cool. That's fine. I love my Switch. All right, uh, but the PlayStation Vita, just a great device, and I have the original one that has the OLED screen, and I've modded it out. I've put retro games on there with retro art. Uh, I've got everything from Sega to Super Nintendo to Game Gear. I got all types of stuff on there. Um, but I still crave the actual PS Vita games on there. And so I've gotten things like MLB The Show. I've got God of War on there. I've got some Lego games on there. But because I could not get the Steam Deck, and because the one thing that drives me insane about the PS Vita is that it has a proprietary SD card, okay, or memory card.
Oh yeah, I
And
remember that.
yeah, and these memory cards cost a ton of money right now. All right. I have an 8 gigabyte one in my Vita right now. That's not enough to download a bunch of games. All right.
Mike,
Uh,
real quick, is that because it's the early version of the Vita? Didn't the second version get rid of the
nope.
proprietary?
It still has the same proprietary
Uh,
card.
okay.
So the problem is that these cards, like I said, I have an 8 gigabyte one. If I want a 16 gigabyte one, I'm paying $30-$40. All right. If
Yikes.
I want a $64 one, I'm paying $80 to $100. All right. So uh, there are workarounds around that where you can use the game cartridge and put a micro SD adapter with a micro SD card in there.
Mm.
Um, but you gotta do some, you gotta do some
Fiddling,
IT
huh?
shit to it, right?
Right.
And that is not my forte. Okay.
Mm.
So uh I decided that I'm going to buy some of the games. And I did not realize because for the time being, last year Sony said, "All right, we're getting rid of the eShop for PS Vita," and people lost their shit. All right,
Hmm.
they said, "No, no," and so then PlayStation was like, "Okay, for the time being, we're going to keep the eShop." All right. Only problem is these games are, while they may not be expensive, they take up a lot of space. Okay.
Mm.
Uh I got God of War, and it was the collection of God of War, and it took up almost all the space on my memory card. So
Yikes.
I can't download any other games. And so now I'm looking for physical versions, and so these physical versions are stupidly priced, especially if you want to get the version used with a case, because people are into keeping cases. I'm not. I don't care about cases. Um,
Hmm.
or I just care about the cartridge. So today I bought Rayman Origins, and then I also bought Unit 13, and I also bought Shantae, Half Genie, and I also bought Sly Cooper. Um,
Mm.
and so I bought 4 games. Cost me a
Some
little
good
bit.
platform games.
Yeah, it cost me a little bit over $100.
Mm.
Um, but
But you
and
got
there,
4 games out of it, so I think that's a well trade off, a good trade off.
absolutely. And you know, um, Actually, if I go into, let me go into my purchases real quick. So yeah, so Unit 13, Rayman, Sly Cooper, and then Shantae. Sly Cooper was the most expensive one. Sly Cooper with the case. I mean, they were selling for $70, $80. All right.
Yikes.
I wanted to get Metal Gear Solid. The collection it would have been Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 3.
Mm.
Well over $100.
Mike, would your Bluetooth headphones work with the PS Vita?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
The Vita, very, very underrated device. I love my Vita. Like I said, I've modded it. I've switched out a bunch of hardware components to it. It's a device that I carry with me all the time. I just it's just a great system. One of the more unique things about it is that it has a touchpad on the back of the Vita. And it's for games like Killzone. The Vita is actually the one time I played Killzone that I actually loved, and it's got these touchscreen controls on the back that are incorporated into the game that you're like, oh my god. It's also a device that has a front-facing camera on it, something that the Switch just doesn't have. And
do you
so,
have the first version or the second version?
I had the first version, so I have the OLED version.
Okay.
So they have the OLED version, which is the version that has the better screen on it, but it has the proprietary charging port, whereas the second version doesn't have the OLED, so it has a worse OLED screen on it. It is slimmer, however, it has an actual USB port to do charging and everything on there.
Yeah, because I've
So
been considering buying one because I wanted to play Xenogears, and I know they have it in the store.
yeah,
and I just haven't done it yet. But you know, you've made some great arguments why I should probably reinvestigate about buying one for spring break, since I don't have a Steam Deck to take with me, and my Switch will probably be occupied by one of my children. So,
I will say it just depends on what you're looking for. For me, I wanted the OLED screen. I wanted the better screen. I will have to live with the proprietary charging, but I can live with that. And so the slimmer one, I mean, the PS Vita is already slim. It's slimmer than the PSP. And I have a PSP. I still have my PSP. So I love the Vita, regardless of whatever you get. I think you're going to absolutely enjoy it. I will say that you should probably buy one sooner rather than later because the prices are starting to go up.
yeah, I got a GameStop close to me too, so I need to go see what they're talking right now.
For real.
Or go on eBay and get me one before it's too late. Mike, before we go, there was one thing we just had this interesting Star Wars talk, and I totally forgot to bring this up during that talk. But Mike, as a Star Wars fan like yourself, to be immersed into the Star Wars universe, would you be willing to pay $1,200 a night
for the ship?
Well, I'm just asking you, would you be willing to pay $1,200 a night to be on a resort where you're in this whole Star Wars universe?
Okay, so Star Wars has their I keep wanting to say like casino, but it's their
it is their resort. They have a 2-day resort. Well, where you feel like you're on a starship.
Yeah, so it's their cruise ship. Okay, so the cruise ship, and their cheapest to stay, the 2-night stay is $5,000.
Yes.
No. You're not going to see my black ass paying $5,000 for 2 nights. I don't care how amazing it is. I saw this review. It's on cnet.com. Okay. They gave this guy hey man, come down here And
I believe it's only in Florida at the moment, correct?
yes, come
Hmm.
down here, go on this cruise ship, 2 nights, see what it's all about. And from all reports, it's amazing.
Hmm.
I'm still not paying $5,000
Yeah,
for 2
totally agree.
nights.
Hmm.
Not paying $5,000 for 2 nights. Okay, that is and look, this thing that they're doing is for people who I have a good job, uh, good benefits. I make decent money, I think. Uh, I'm not paying $5,000 a night.
Hmm.
My I guess brother-in-law who has his own company, who is dirt rich, who just bought a Tesla Plaid. It's a $300,000 car, fully loaded. Okay. That's when you pay $5,000 a night.
Yeah,
He just bought a $2 million home in Cape Cod. That's when you pay $5,000 a night. That's when you say, you know what, $5,000 a night. That's like $50 a night for me. Okay, um, but to advertise that to the average Joe, please, people, please do not spend that kind of money.
you know what?
It's
You're
not.
better off just doing the Han Solo adventure that they have in like Star Wars land. I
Yeah,
can't think of the name of it right now, but
right.
at
Well,
least you're.
the entire it's there's I forget what it's the Galaxy something. Um, I'd rather people just do that, where you get to experience a lot more, you know, than going to a cruise ship where you got to pay uh $5,000 for a 2 night stay. If I'm paying 5 grand, it better be for a week. Okay, um, all expenses. I mean, I can go to Fiji for 5 grand. You know,
Absolutely.
uh, and I absolutely, that's not for the average Joe. And if the average Joe is willing to pay $5,000 for 2 nights, you need to reevaluate your priorities for real.
Yeah, and so it's getting mixed reviews as it is, and it is probably because of that price tag. Because,
Yeah,
like right now, it's coming out at the worst time. We're just coming out of the pandemic.
yeah.
Yes, while you probably got some rich folks who are willing to pay, or some really big fans who are willing to pay that money. Overall, the amount of money that they're asking for probably won't fit this situation. So,
Well,
I
and
go ahead.
and when you think about you mentioned at the beginning of the show the real world things that are going on right now. God help those folks in Ukraine, with the Russian invasion. Okay. There are ramifications that will affect American citizens uh economically, especially with gas. And they're talking, we might be paying $7 an hour or $7
Hmm.
a gallon for gas. you know um Lord knows how much you might be paying in Hawaii for gas.
Yeah.
It might even be double that. So why, as a company like Disney, advertise this to the average Joe? You know, it's just Disney is expensive as it is. Whether you go to Disney World or Disneyland, it's expensive.
Yeah,
Uh,
them tickets are crazy.
yeah,
Uh,
and that's even if you
last I
have
looked.
a corporate account
Hmm.
or the quote unquote veterans discount. You know, it's expensive. And now you want me to pay even more for 2 nights? $5,000. That's a car. you know, that's a used car for your college bound kid.
Hmm.
Um, that's just it just doesn't seem worth it. I hope that the the 90% middle class of us uh don't pay that. There's no reason to rack up a $5,000, and that's not even including what it costs to get there. You know, if you got a family of 4 or 5 and you have to fly to Florida just to get on that ship.
You're talking
You're
about
talking about another
10,000,
five,
depending where
right?
you're coming from.
Right. You're talking about another $5,000, so 10 grand, like you just said. That's way too much. That's way
Yeah,
too much.
yeah, absolutely. But you know what? It's we'll see how things turn out, but I'm pretty sure that that's a wrap. After a certain amount of time, and it'll go by the wayside, like a few other Disney interpretations or inventions, whatever you would like to call it.
I love the idea. I
So do
absolutely
I.
love the idea. But like I can tell you, like I know even for so let's just take you for instance. All right.
Hmm.
You've done very well for yourself.
Hmm.
And you're golfing at $5,000 for 2 nights?
Yeah,
No.
it's
Then
not
how am
happening.
I'm not I'm doing well for myself. I'm not doing that well. Like I'm not doing 5,000.
Yeah.
There's so much more you can spend 5,000, especially now. So even think about because of the pandemic, plane tickets actually have gone up now.
Hmm.
Um
But you could go
Hotels,
to the Caribbean with 5K and live luxurious,
right.
right? A
There's so
trip to
many other
Mexico
places.
with 5K, you can. Let's say it's just you and your lady.
Mhm.
You solid. But
Look,
yeah,
this what I'll do. I'm gonna
uh-huh.
spend that money to go to the Caribbean and my kids are there. Look, I'll buy you some
Yeah.
lightsabers. All right. Here's some lightsabers. I
Yep.
thought we was gonna have a Star Wars. Here's your Star Wars experience. Here's a
Yep.
lightsaber for you, and here's a lightsaber for you. Guess
Yep.
what? It didn't cost
Some
us $5,000.
stormtrooper helmets. Yep. Some
Yeah.
stormtrooper helmets. Let's call it a day because
Would
there's
you rather
no.
go swimming with the dolphins
Yep.
or with some random stormtrooper eating some shady buffet style food during the pandemic?
Man, who you telling? Who are you
Right.
telling? Well, ladies and gentlemen, this ends another episode of the Nation 80 podcast. Mike, why don't you lead us out this time?
Look, everyone, we are on episode 8. Who knew that we would make it to this milestone for us? Uh, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We have stuff coming out all the time. Rodney and I are adults. We're parents. We're career people, and so our schedule is not as consistent as we would like it. However, if there is something that you would like us to cover, please leave a comment. Also, please leave a like. Please leave a subscribe. Hit that subscribe button so that we can continue to bring you more content in the future. This is Michael. That's Rodney. We are the Nation80 podcast.